So it's going to be part 2 of core creation today. Last time we did all the face morphing and all the little bits on the face. Today it's going to be pretty much everything else. Body morphing, attire, and sort of shading of the face. Now when you get to this stage, this is when we're going to start using layers. As you can see, if you're not familiar with the game, which I'm sure most of you are, we're at 12 layers now with everything that's already built in. The only layer you can get rid of is the shoes, but as far as I'm aware, most people, generally you're going to keep the shoes in and use that layer. So you've got, 20 layers left? And because of that, you're often going to have a little bit of a trade-off between getting the attire absolutely perfect. I might not pick this attire, because this is quite detailed. Imagine how many layers I'd have to put in to try and recreate that. I may find a more simplified one. But there's going to be a bit of a trade-off between getting the attire perfect and getting the face perfect. For me, I generally go for the face first, and then if I can do a basic attire but get the face better, I'll pick that. But it's entirely up to you. But what we're going to do next is I'm actually going to zoom in on this picture, and we're going to do the details now, obviously because this is a woman. Just thought I'd point that out. If you haven't noticed, then that might be a shocking detail. Makeup is going to be an important part of this. Now, you will use makeup on all of them, even the men who don't wear makeup. Now, when you're doing male characters, you'll find that you use these a lot. The sort of back end between 135 and where does it end? From 135 to 119. Now, what these are is, these just give sort of lines around the eyes. She's actually got a little bit under there, you can see, even though she's wearing makeup, there's no makeup at the bottom here, so it's all at the top. So this might be a good example, and what you're doing is you're looking at the markings around the eyes. Now obviously because she's got makeup on, the top bit of the eyes, there's not lines visible. But you can see this line under here, and there's a little bit of darkness. So what you're really looking for is something that matches that shape. You can see these lines here as you scroll through these. Usually with the male characters, I just flick through and find one that matches the eyes better. And it just gives it that detail. But I think in this case, if I go up here, and again you'll become familiar with these as you use this more. Never 100% though, because even I forget sometimes where things are. I think this one's around 80 something. And it's this one I'm looking for. You can see she's got the lines under the eyes. I'm going to use them. Now what you're trying to do with these types of makeup layers is get them fairly close to the skin colour. And you're just looking at the difference, you can see. So it's ever so slightly darker than a skin tone, but it's not a very strong line. So I'm going to try and get as best the colour match as I can first. And as you can see, as you bring that in, it fades it. So you're just looking to get it roughly the same as it is on there. And it's a very faint sort of line that you're looking at. So I think that's a pretty good marker. Maybe a little bit lower. I'd probably say about there. Now sometimes you'll change the colour and you'll think actually that's too much. You can also change the transparency and that'll fade it in a bit more, but I'd say that's pretty good. You're also looking at colours as well. Now obviously again this is to do with makeup, so you can see that there's bit of redness on here. A good thing to do while you're doing this is actually change the brightness and contrast settings on your TV. Turn it up as high as you can, fairly high. And you'll see all of these very, very small details with the face. But I don't think it'll actually do it on my recording if I do it now, so I'm not going to do that. But as you can see, there's a little bit of shading here around the cheeks as well. It's slightly redder than the skin. So there's another makeup layer. And the ones that shade the face, I think, are around 45. And as you can see, it's not a full shading like that. It's a more subtle shading. You're just going to try and find the one that best matches it. Which isn't always, you're not always going to get a perfect result. Let's see what happens with this one when I change the transparency. Does it fade in? Yeah, it does. So as you can see, the inside part, as I move the transparency, it moves away. But this bit is still visible. So I'm probably going to pick this one because it's in the right position. But again, we'll play about with the colours. We'll make it a little bit less red. Maybe a little bit more colour. And you can just see a slight bit of shade in there. Again, you don't want it to look ridiculous, but you're just trying to get a decent match. And as I look at that picture and look at that picture, I'd say that's about right. Maybe move the transparency a little bit. And it's the same with everything. You're just trying to do everything piece by piece as you look at the face. Because all of these small details, you know, once you've done them all, they really do make a difference. Now, with eye makeup, it might surprise you to know I'm not an expert on women's makeup. Only on my own. But always look at where it starts, where the normal flesh-coloured bit starts and where the makeup starts, and you'll see the sort of main bit. So the outside bit is sort of a pinkish colour there, isn't it? And you can see where it covers. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to go to makeup. And remember, don't worry about the inside bit yet. We're just worrying about this outline because we can put more makeup over that. We're just looking for a match with this. And again, don't worry about the colour. We're just looking at how much it covers the shape, the overall shape, where it covers here. So you can see it starts at this bit of the eye, whatever it's called. It goes over. It's not quite high enough to go to our eyebrows. And you're just looking at that shape and you're going to try and find a match. Now, the one I'm looking at now looks pretty good. So I'm going to pick this one. And again, let me go through some of them before. You can see they're all slightly different. Some will have a bit of blackness in there. Sometimes you can even get away with using one layer, but I think in her case, it's probably going to be a layer for the pink and then a layer for this sort of silvery bit here. So I'm going to use this one first. I'm going to try and get a colour match on that. Okay, so that's a little bit too purple. We need to move over there a little bit. And remember, you're going to change the transparency on this as well to blend it in a little bit more with the skin. So don't worry if it looks a bit too strong. I'd say that's more or less the same colour. And then we're just going to move the transparency. And I'd say that looks more or less right. Maybe a little bit darker. Maybe a little bit less. Yeah, I think that looks okay. Again, I'm just doing a rough guide here. It's not an in-depth. I may do a proper edited video one day where I go in-depth and break everything down and have little relevant clips and everything that make it a bit easier. I may do that one day, but for now, this is probably the closest thing you're going to get to a comprehensive guide. So we've done this bit now, so now we need this bit to go over. Now this is just covering the eyelids. This sort of silvery colour. So we'll go to makeup again, and we're just looking for something that's just going to cover the eyelids. The good thing is, because you've already got that down, you can see how much they cover. Now actually, when I look, see, that's not quite big enough. I wonder, and sometimes what you'll find as well is it might cover too much, but when you move the transparency, it covers a little bit less. But it's just a matter of going through them all and seeing what you can find. That might be the one. Turn that black. Yeah, you can see how much that covers, so I think that's the right one. It's sort of a touch of yellow in it, but it's mainly sort of silverish. You're never going to get a perfect colour match, you just do your best. Let me zoom in on that a little bit. A little bit too green, maybe move it across there a little bit. You just play about with it until you think it looks about right. And to be honest, I'd be quite happy with that. I think that looks okay, so we're going to leave that as it is. So we've pretty much done makeup. We've done a little bit of shading. Again, it depends how much you want to prioritise the face over the attire, because there's only so many layers to work with. There is a limit. Now, normally what you look at here is how much of the, would you call it, it's eyeliner, isn't it? Where the line of the eye, but she doesn't really have any on here. I'm not saying she never wears it, but I'm using this picture as a guide. So we're going to move on to the body and the attire now. But I think that looks okay as it is. If we don't use all the layers on the attire, we may go back and look at really fine details like lines around the face. But for now, I'm happy with that. In fact, what I'm going to do is, speaking of lines on the face, there's one detail we didn't use. That's the age. Now, the problem with the age is it ages everything. So let's say someone's just got a couple of lines here, but nothing here. This ages everything. Now, it depends who you're using, but sometimes just a subtle change on that can make it. I'm going to put her at about a 10. It just makes the face look a little bit more realistic. But now we're going to move on to body and attire. Now, I've got this picture here, which is great. So I can do the morphing of the body. And again, we've done the head. We know how big that is. Use the head as a guide, because once you've got one thing done, That's kind of like your marker, and just compare everything to the head. I think I did neck last time, but looking at that, I'd say that's roughly right. Shoulders might be a little bit difficult because the hair's over it, but I'd always go lower. Even with the men, I always go lower. I'll probably go down to there. And I'd say the width looks fine. Now, chest, obviously, when you do a male wrestler or character, there'll be no bust. And I'll show you what these two do differently. Now, chest moves the actual body part, as in, think of it as the back. So if you move that wider, the breasts stay the same size. And in her case, she doesn't have a wide chest, but I'd say her bust needs to move wider. Maybe a little bit. And again, you're just comparing it to this, the things that you've already done, the head, the neck and the shoulders, and you just work your way through like that. So obviously bust, it moves the breast bigger. So looking from the front, I'd say probably a little bit taller. And maybe a touch wider. I'd say that's about right. And we'll do the side after. I always tend to do the front and then the side. It just makes life a bit easier. So you're not so constantly going from one to the other. Abdomen, we may change that after we've done the attire. It looks okay for now. I think I've already done a little bit on this, haven't I? Yeah, for some reason. Sorry, that shoulder, I've lost it. Ignore me. Come to abdomen. There we go. So sometimes abdomen, when you get the attire, so say maybe when you put the lower part of the attire on, you might notice that it doesn't look right because it doesn't cover quite enough. You can change that by just changing the height of the abdomen. But to be fair, it looks pretty good. It depends. If they're wearing trunks, you usually have to change it because it looks a bit ridiculous. But I think that looks more or less okay. What's this one? Waist obviously changes the hips. So again, I'm not seeing any drastic changes. Maybe abdomen actually, the shape, as you can see here, this curves in a little bit. Theirs doesn't curve in as much as that, so I'd put the width up. But it's exactly the same as last time. You're just doing everything piece by piece and trying to make it match. Arms, this is one where you probably do want to look from the side, and she's got a little bit more muscle on her arms, so I'm going to put that up a bit. I'll probably put it up to about there. And if we look from the front, again, you're always going to have a trade-off between the front and the side. You just, if in doubt, just sort of go in between on both of them. But again, these are a bit self-explanatory. I very rarely change hands on women. They look about right. It's such a small detail, I wouldn't worry. Legs, we're going to look at the length of the legs. And I'd say her legs are a little bit shorter than that. Only a little bit. But I'd say the dimensions are fine in terms of the width of the thighs and everything. And finally, feet. We'll do that once we've got the shoes on because that can change things. So now we'll go around the side and we'll do all these. So obviously it's going to be depth. Now she's been a bit of an inconsiderate person here because she's sort of turned her head to the side, but you can kind of see how much her head sticks out. I'd say a little bit more depth on that. And again, there's not really much explaining to do. She's covering her chest as well, but I'll keep that as it is. Shoulders look fine. Abdomen. Shoulders are a bit of a thingy one because the arms change the shoulders as well in a way when you make the arms bigger. If someone's got absolutely no muscle definition at all, but I'd say she's probably about there. But it's self-explanatory. Shoulder depth changes the depth of the shoulders. I'm just going to whiz through this quickly because, to be honest, I don't know how helpful this bit is, really. It's very similar to the face morphing. In fact, I'm just going to leave that. I'll probably do the lower half. Do the abdomen. I think you get the idea. Maybe a little bit more depth on that. You're just looking, I'm looking at that, I'm looking at that. It's use your own judgment, really. I'd say her waist needs to stick out. That'll make the ass stick out more as well. So, yeah, I'd say probably about there. You can't change the height of that. Probably the biggest flaw with this is that some people will have Of like a skinny waist but a big ass. You can't really change the height. Legs, I'd say a bit more depth. And again, you can always change this layer. So when it comes to attire, this is where you might need another picture. Now, generally, I look for the simplest one I can find. Anything with too much detail, and I tend to sort of shy away from. But this is something, the more you create, the more you'll know what you're capable of in the game. So after looking, I've decided that she's not got that many simple attires. I'm going to stick with this one. I'm just going to do my best with it, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So you're looking at the details, you've got these flames up here. Now you might be able to do that with the wristbands actually, because if you look at wristbands you can have two, and some have got holes in, so maybe you could do a red underneath or a yellow underneath, and pick one of the ones sort of like the Jeff Hardy ones like that. It's not going to look perfect, but it might look okay. There's always a bit of a trade-off between, it's not a perfect system. So I'm going to pick the red as well. Now there's a red and a yellow, but it's going to be the red I'm going to pick. I'm just going to try and get the colour as close as I can. It's more or less okay for that red, the flames. And then we'll do another wristband. And it doesn't look brilliant, but it looks probably the best you're going to get it. It's a shame there's not another one I can put over it, but there isn't. So I might actually do that the other way around. You can always change it now. So remember 150.39. Do that one black. Yeah, I'm not happy with that. I'm not happy with that one at all. And she's got black and white one. In fact, we'll just do the black and white for now. Let's ignore that. So you can do a wristband on each arm, but it's going to take you 2 layers up. But I'd probably say that's the best thing to do. We could maybe add a layer to it later, we'll see. So we've got a white, silvery white, but we'll just call it white. No, wristbands, right arm. And we'll do a black one. And we're just going to try and do the basics here. These will probably be done with socks. Without the detail. Maybe if there's more layers at the end we can add the detail in, but for now we just want to get the basics done. Anything like that you can use socks for. So what we'll do is we'll do the shoes first. She's got like white high tops, haven't she? Again, you're never going to find a perfect There's a few trainers in here, I think. They don't look too bad. They're not trainers though. Maybe them? Yeah, probably the best you're going to get. They look okay actually. And this is what I was talking about when you do the shoes. I'd say that's probably the best time to change the dimensions of the feet. Because we need a bit more depth on there, I'd say. A little bit more width. But yeah, it depends what footwear you choose. So we'll do the socks. So we're going to do these two. So it's going to be left and right again. It's not going to look perfect, but you're just looking to get that basic attire done. If there's layers left over, you can always add detail, but there might not be layers left over, so it's unfortunate, unless you use sort of mods and stuff, but if you're using mods, then, you can practically just, I don't know how mods work, but you can do some pretty impressive stuff. I've noticed she's got like tights on as well there, so we'll add them. And they'll have to go underneath the socks. There's a layer here, it's this one. Just take the colour out. In fact, no. We need a bit more sort of flesh colour in there. You can always make them more transparent as well. And we're going to cover them up with the underwear, so I'd probably say there, maybe a little bit more. Just gives it that effect. And then put them behind the socks. Right, now we've got underwear. Now with this one thing I didn't point out here. With the men, there'll be one layer that you can't, like underwear, that you have to have one underwear layer on, and it can't be above anything. With the female one, there's 2 layers like that. You've got short hemline as well, like for a, but you can always change that to a top as well. There's certain tops you could put in there. But obviously with the men, so you sort of lose an extra layer with a female one. So actually, I'll do the top first. Now I've moved on to this. You're just looking at the shape again. Just trying to match that. If there's a bit too much showing or not enough showing, you can always change that, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But now we've got to pick a base colour because we've got black and white. I'm going to pick white as the base colour and maybe try and put a few black layers over it if we get time. Should keep our 50. Yeah. And the same with underwear. I'm going to pick the sort of paler colour. I'm probably going to pick them just because it covers the tights. So we'll go to there. Now, let's see what we've got left here. Right, we've got 11 layers left, so what I'm going to use some of them for is to put some of the black in here. Now, obviously, you've got the front and the back. So we'll see how we do. So we're going to start at the front. And you're just shading it in, really. Unfortunately, when you get to here, you can't put anything over unless you're using some sort of mod or hat, but it'll still improve it, so we'll just do that. We'll probably need 2 of them. Basically just colouring it in. That's all you're doing. We'll do one for the strap up there. Again, this is not problem in grass work, but it looks okay. And it's probably going to use 3. In fact, I might need that one, the actual one. Yeah, I think that looks okay. Again, it looks rubbish, but you can't fill that in, so. And we'll maybe do another one. But as you can see, this is 4 layers now. You soon burn through the layers when you're having to do stuff, sort of filling stuff in. You want to avoid it really, but sometimes you just can't. You can't do 2 colours in this game and things. Sometimes you might have to go over where it is, but I think it looks okay. We'll do that black. And we'll go torso back. And we'll colour this bit in as well. And I think you're looking for it to at a glance look okay. That's the aim, really. You're never going to get it perfect. I'm actually going to use this for the final one because that's quite a thin strap. But one of the biggest things actually is knowing where certain layers are. So you'll remember certain ones and go back to them and things like that. So we've done that. How many layers have we got left now? There you go. We've got 5 layers left. So I'm going to use the last 5 to try and colour this in a bit. Again, when you do this, you'll find, let me show you, that the bit near the crotch also won't let you fill it in. There you go. So we've got a curve there, but because of that, we can use that sort of to our advantage a bit, and we can use that to create that curve there. We'll do that. We need one more. Let's say there. And again, this is very, very basic. The attire's you're never going to create that attire that's there, but when I look through, she's got quite a complicated one. She's not created her ring wear with this in mind, obviously. Someone should have a word. So we'll do one more here, think at the end the probably best bit is we're going to get the black and white, but we're not going to get the flames on here and everything, which is a shame, but there's not really a lot you can do about that. Because you don't get a ton of layers. If you're quite lucky, you know, they'll have quite a basic attire with just some basic colours and shading and stuff, but unfortunately that's not the case here. So I think we've got 2 or 1 left. We've got 2 left, so we'll do the back bit, and I think that'll do it. And it's one of them, I'd have picked one that will probably look better if I'd have known, but the problem is I'm creating this while I'm showing you, so I don't know how well it's going to turn out until I actually do it. But yeah, I think it's passable. If I was in court under oath, I'd say I did the best I could. I'd be able to say that, without lying, but we've got 1 more, hopefully we can get this filled in. Now you'll notice with this layer, when you have it that way, you can go quite low with it. You turn it around, you can't go any lower than that. So sometimes you'll find with that layer that you have to have it this way. No, don't do that, but you have to have it that way. I think I want a curved one for that. And again, it's not perfect. I may turn the previous one around just to fill it in. This may have even been less helpful than the previous guide I did, but hopefully you're getting something out of this. We'll go back to the one before, and we're just going to turn that the other way to sort of bring it like that. Yeah. We should be able to match that up, but it doesn't look stupid. But let's do that. Even if we can just get it to the line where that ends, that diagonal one ends, I'll be happy. Just so it looks like it belongs there. I don't think we're going to get it. Maybe that way, will it let me? No, it won't. Yeah. That is not good. That's probably the best I'm going to get it. Obviously, I might spend more time on these. Sometimes this is just a basic one. To be honest, it's probably not the best one I've ever done. But I've created Zelina Vega. I've kind of shown you what I do. That was the main purpose of this video. Hopefully you've got a bit more of an understanding about how I go about these. It's a shame it didn't turn out a little bit better, but it's okay. It's not one of my best ones. I wouldn't say it's my worst one, but I think it's passable, isn't it? Obviously, the final thing to do is to put details in. I don't think I showed you that. And rings, I just usually look up whether they're a heel or a face and what sort of rings. I don't know anything about her. But that's it for that video. I hope you found it useful. I'm actually going to put out I can't speak again. I'm going to put out a much more better thought out guide one day and actually plan the video and maybe do some good editing and things like that. But for now, it's probably the best you're going to get in terms of a guide. I hope you found it useful. Apart from that, see you later.
Do you want some great created wrestlers in your game, but without going through the lengthy process of creating them yourself? Well, I can help you out with that. If you play on PS2 or PS2 emulator, I can create just for you a custom save data file and preload it with up to 30 created wrestlers that you have chosen. If you're interested, send me an email at pastgengamingemail@gmail.com. My email is linked on the main channel page, and I can also do this for the PSP, but on PSP I can only do save files for the European version of the game.